Baba Siri Chand?
Yes,
Okay.
I think he was the son of Guru Nanak, and he never
Yes,
aged. He was like always looked like he was 16.
yes, you're right. Or 12 or something.
So what Baba showed me about Shunia is about it being in this place of total stillness and like the neutrality, like as if nothing exists anymore. And the way he showed it was the place between life and death. So like that liminal space of the body after it has taken the last breath, but before it has died. And that's also what Baba showed me. It's there always. It's there at the bottom of every single one of our breaths. It's there in between this breath and the next breath. And that's how Baba travels. So Baba, Baba, you know how he's magical in so many ways. He exists in this shunya, in this liminal space between, because he is still alive, but he doesn't need to be in that place where he takes his next breath. So that's how he can time travel, for example, and that's how he can be in all of the spaces at all of the time. That's how he can come to me and you all over the place all at the same time, is because he's in this liminal space, because he's embodying this place of shunya. And also, he's showing me that that's where he has always been. So, that time that I was in class in Florida, and he gave me that vision, showing me about my home, that he was my home, basically. But what he showed me was about it being that liminal space. Like, so we were in the clouds. I thought we were in heaven, but it turns out we were in the Himalayas. And even now, there might be something else on top of that space, but Baba is able, with being in that state of shunya, that how do I express it? It's a vibration of his stillness. His stillness even vibrates. It's and he emanates that as well. It's something that he imparts and gives to all of us. But that state of shunya is how he's able to like slip between. Have you guys noticed how he arranges timing, like makes divine timing? And he does this through that emanating and vibrating of this state of shunya. So shunya, as Baba showed it, is in between life and death. And there's so much that happens at the bottom of that last breath. And we can access that right now by being at the place and cherishing the place in between our breaths. And he showed that as also the place for the lover's voice. He showed that as this place of going in and out, of being in between, of being liminal, of being between life and death. And that by being in practice with being in that space of stillness is how we amplify that ability in ourselves to be able to be in those subtle places, transubstantiating things the way that he is and does, the way of being in that space of neutrality emotionally, as well as like all of the other ways. Like Baba means this, that this is actually how he time travels. And the way that we can take some of that energy into our lives is by being in practice with the bottom of that breath. At the bottom of the breath, it's the place in between the one breath goes in and the next breath comes out. He showed
Mm-hmm.
me about his own body, that like, so his body, they never found his body. He did something really special when he died called alope, Alope, and it means that his body just transubstantiated. And so his body is like, as far as I understand it, it's still alive, and his spirit is still alive, but like it's just not on this plane. And it's because of being in that space of neutrality, of that space of shunya, that it gets to travel in between, like this life and the next life. It didn't rot. That's why it didn't rot, is because it's on that in between liminal plane. We can have access to that. Like when Baba showed it to me as this is my home, almost in the way that I feel both married to my practice. I've felt married to my practice for a long time. And also, I feel married to Baba Siri Chand in the way that he's like my companion and partner and stuff like that. But also, um, that's that place of Shunya. It came from being in my practice of being in the bottom of the breath and in between the two spaces. It came from being in practice long enough to be on that vibration of Shunya with him. And it takes an applied, I want to say an applied presence of like when we get emotionally triggered or we have to navigate life with everyday self, and coming back to that place of Shunya, coming back to that stillness. That's why pranayama is so important to be practicing breath work. If we're not in the practice of controlling our breath, then one breath just goes into the other like panting. And instead we want to really suspend, fully exhale. Like I keep getting the message about with, how do I say it, about the end of the breath. It's about the end of the breath. So like if you exhale only halfway and then you inhale, the air that was stale at the bottom of the lungs intermingles with the fresh air, and it's possible for people to walk around with stale air in their lungs. And the way to work around this is to fully exhale, and then all of the air in the lungs is of freshness. And that's really best for our circulation for while we're living. Like one of the other messages I've been getting today is about antioxidants and like how we need to metabolize oxygen to be alive and for our bodily nutrition. But like bringing it back to the yoga, we need to be um, in that place of practicing being in between the breaths and being in that place of suspension to really, because it's a bit uncomfortable, like if you think about the feeling when you put your face under the water as a kid and you try to hold your breath for a long time and you say, I'm going to stay under here and I'm going to beat my cousin or whatever. And you get that really uncomfortable feeling. It feels really uncomfortable, and it can even induce panic. But that's the thing, is about kind of being guiding that inner child about saying you're not going to die, and you just take a breath when you want to take a breath, but also like letting yourself feel that discomfort of that's the place that only we sense right before we die. Sometimes, like if you don't take the next breath, so that's why that's uncomfortable, is because that's what the body thinks it's going to feel. And Baba sat in that place for so long that he just got so comfortable. He got to transubstantiate both his body and his spirit. And now he can time travel and do all kinds of other siddhi. What Baba showed me when we were doing the meditation was about the posture balasana, which is also known as child's pose or embryo. It's kind of like a little bean where you put your head on the earth and your torso is kind of nestled in between your knees. And Baba showed me that as being a really awesome posture to bring us back to neutrality. And and part of the reason why is because he said that, so it's baby pose or child's pose, like a child. And in all of the Udasi writings, they call, not all of them, but in a lot of them, they call Baba Bale, which means little boy. And so we can stimulate the pituitary gland by being in this position and come into this state of neutrality or shunya more easily, and also be like more on the vibration of Baba Siri Chand. And he showed me about children, that children have an easier time coming into shunya than adults
Yeah,
do. I think every single time I do it, I think of Baba Siri Chand, because at the beginning of his, the most important prayer that Baba wrote, well, one of the most important ones, but it's really long. It's called the Matra Sahib, and it begins with ballet, and it goes through, and every single time I'm in I'm in child's pose, I feel the blessing of Baba. I can feel him blessing me with giving me this pose that I just feel is, I feel it is his. And it's really funny to feel like him, because that's, I call him Baba, which means father. And I feel I've been really kind of tripping out on the Trinity thing of how Baba is all at once, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And when I think about the ballet, it's just this childlike baby essence of him, as opposed to, like, so often I go to him with like my concerns and troubles like a father. And it's what he's reminding me is that he gets to be like purely himself in this true childlike freedom without expectation, is part of his child appearance, part of him being like a child. And I think of him and that freedom and that gift, to me, of me having that childlike freedom when I too am in balasana.